Well, as long as you like, you have to scroll down a bit for the comments and then you go, there's like a thing where you can choose like popular comments or something. I'll tell you in a second what it is.
Uh, Yeah, I'm not sure it's gonna let me see it though. This is the whole thing.
Yeah, it says
Mhm.
top chat, live chat, and then I put it on live chat. So don't want
Here,
that.
so yeah, I don't think it works on my computer. I think it works on my phone, but I don't think it works on this stupid thing. I don't think I, for some reason, I don't think I can go live in this damn thing.
What do you mean live? You would just be watching it from a
No,
YouTube
I
channel.
know, no, I know, but it's
And
just
we
there's.
are live right now, by the way.
Oh, okay, all right. Well, people can deal with my
Yeah.
idiocy here. Just trying to let's see if this will. Oh, wait a second. This might be it. Oh, I feel. Oh, you know what? Victory. Still can't read the comments, so that's okay.
Oh, good evening, James. James is on here from overseas. That's a late night for him.
Late night with James. All right, all right. Well, I can't see the comments, but anyway, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. What's going on, Mary? We haven't done
Well,
this
you
in a
just
while.
scroll down. Like, I mean, for to see the comments, you do have to scroll down a little bit. Like, you won't be able to see the video. You
Oh,
just you
oh, I
just
don't
would
care about
see.
seeing my
Oh, good evening,
stupid
David.
face. Okay. All right. What? You know, whatever. Whatever. Okay. We'll do it live. Anyway,
We are live.
as I have to fight through my cold here. This is a dared and dangerous situation here. Sit in the pouring rain at a football game all day Sundays does not do Darren good. Anyway, so what's happening with you? What are you up to?
Uh, Not much. It's just like trying to
What?
digest all that you said. I was like, wait, football game. I'm like, oh right, we're at the football game on Sunday.
And I'm the one with the short memory, huh? Okay. Bye bye.
It's been a
Bye bye bye.
long day. It's
And
been a
it's been a
long day.
oh, I know. It's been so long. I know. And what's going on with you? I mean, you just got home from work. I barely had a chance to talk to you. So what's going on? What are you
I
up to?
know. Well, yeah, I don't get home till like 6 o'clock from work now. So,
Yeah.
um, but yeah, it's been things have been going well. We recorded an episode last week with Daz, also called Darren from the UK from Civil War UK podcast,
He's
which
the
was
other
awesome.
Darren, the one who
Mhm.
spells Darren wrong.
Yeah.
He spells like Darren from Bewitched. That was good though. That was fun. I mean, dust off the old chestnut speaking Battle of Chickamauga. That was pretty good. But I think I think it was and I think he's releasing that in I don't know, a week or two. I think he's actually going to do it the day of the battle. Didn't he say that like the 18th or
I
19th or
think
something?
around then, yeah, but it was really good because I've been reading Dave Powell's the first book in his trilogy about Chickamauga campaign, and then I think this is which one is this? I think this is book two, book three, something like that. He's got like a 3 volume trilogy.
Yeah,
Um
that's book two, The Search for Curly's Gold.
yeah,
But that's a good book though, and it's really Chickamauga is a fascinating thing because you forget, it's kind of like when you think of Antietam, right?
yeah,
It's really just it's everything going from the Maryland campaign, going from South Mountain all the way through Harper's Ferry, all the way through Antietam, and then from Antietam to Shepherdstown, and Shepherdstown to Williamsport. It goes on and on and on and on, and Chickamauga is like that, where you have to talk about Tullahoma, right? Then you have to deal with the bridges. Then you got to deal with the battle, and you got to deal with the post battle. So
yeah.
I mean, there is a war of campaigns, but it is finally something to talk about because it was good to talk about that around the anniversary because it's coming up here again.
Yep. And it often gets, I don't know, I feel like, I don't know, it's Western theater, so it kind of gets forgotten about sometimes. But James reminded me of like when we recorded the episodes, like you and I, like 5 years ago now, you referred to me as Chickamama. Remember that?
Oh yeah, that was
You
I forgot
just,
about that. That was a long time ago. Yeah, that was only was Chickamauga was one of the because you love Chickamauga. That's like your baby,
that's my
right?
favorite battle.
And
Yeah.
so that was one of those ones where we did, and that seems that was I think that was the year after the actual battle we did. It's been so long.
It's been a long time.
In my day, but
Back
that
in
was
my day,
but
yeah, it's been a long time since we recorded, and it's one that like it is such a confusing battle. There are so many moving parts, and there's so much going into it. I mean, you read like if you read Dave Powell's book, it will give you an awesome understanding of not just the battle, but of going into it, what the situation was with Braxton Bragg, what it was like with Rosecrans, and how much the two of them had just been, kind of, Tullahoma campaign, like going at each other, and just Rosecrans does get himself into a situation where he's got, General Thomas saying to him, like, I think Bragg might be a lot closer than what he is. And the thing is like September 18th is the first day of the battle. And had you not had Wilder and Minty down at Reed's and Alexander's Bridge, Rosecrans might have had the army destroyed that. Like Rosecrans, his army of the Cumberland may have been destroyed that day because Bragg's plan was really good. And the only reason it couldn't get off the ground was because Minty and Wilder held them off.
Well, it's true. That is true. I mean, some of them did get lost along the way, and there was
Yeah,
some
yeah, there
things
was there was that,
with
but I
guys
think
like
things
shot
could have been a
Pouch
lot
Walker a little
worse.
bit, and Nathan for Forrest a little bit. But no, but you're right though. I mean, he was the it was a bigger version of Buford here at Gettysburg in a lot of different ways because
Mhm.
you have two bridges to get over, or it's even actually it's probably more so like in Antietam with the upper, middle, and lower
Yeah,
bridges, right? You
yeah.
defend the bridges, keep them off. But you're right because if they had come across those bridges when they wanted to, on that first day,
Mhm.
they would have separated. Because don't forget too, is Rosecrans' army was all split up still. They were still
Yeah, well,
split
that's
up.
why he was, trying to get back. And David Maxwell says you can't emphasize the importance of Minty and Wilder enough. And that's one thing that ever since I, discovered the Battle of Chickamauga, that's the one thing that I've always said. I'm like, you cannot, these guys are, doing amazing things. And it often does get compared to Gettysburg, but I like your comparison more to Antietam because it's like, it's different from Gettysburg in the sense that like they're trying to cross like a river and Buford is just he's fighting on an open field. Not to like downplay what Buford is
Well,
doing.
it's like Antietam when you're talking about the lower bridge, the Roebuck Bridge, which is another Burnside Bridge, because the other bridges for the most part were Union controlled all the way around, especially the upper bridge, just
Yeah.
walked right across. But no, but I think at that point you're finally a way to slow them down and stop them and just be that speed bump. And they held them off for what, 6 hours from 10 to 4?
Yeah, and
Actually, it was nine.
Minty
Actually, it was 9 hours.
Minty was outnumbered like 5-1 because some of his guys had gone down because they weren't sure how many because I think it was so Minty was at Reed's Bridge and Wilder was at Alexander's Bridge. And I think they thought more than we were going to be trying to get across at Alexander's Bridge. So they shuffled
Yeah.
some of Minty's guys down there. Well, it turned out that was not the case. But there's a good book by Eric Wittenberg wrote Holding the Line at the River of Death. As far as I know, that is the only written like that's just focusing on that day of Chickamauga.
Mhm.
Obviously I think Dave Powell's gonna talk about it in his book too, and I'll be curious as to see how he treats it, but he sees it as being a 3-day battle as well.
Well, it's definitely a
1800.
3 day. I mean,
Yeah.
theoretically, Antietam's a 2 day battle if you really
Mhm.
think about it.
Yeah.
I mean, September 16th, there was skirmishing, there was fighting back and forth, some artillery and some pot shots. So it did start theoretically the day before, but I guess as far as a real actual battle, Antietam specifically much more than just the 17th of September. But you're right though, Chickamauga is clearly it's a 9 hour battle in the first day, but for some reason
Yeah.
people miss that, and I don't, and it isn't just like the average people who just barely study this stuff. Like some of the mainstream guys you've read always talked about a 2 day battle at Chickamauga, which I never really understood though because
I
it's you
I
know
think I think it might be because I don't know if it's to try and discredit somebody who was fighting on that first day and to take the credit away from them. Like Caleb said, hot take, Longstreet won the battle, Bragg would have bungled it without I
well
think
I
Longstreet is a big,
I don't know.
he's
I
a
don't
big
know. I mean,
factor.
Longstreet with his 9 brigades and all those guys. But the reality was, it got bundled because of Thomas J. Wood in a lot of different ways. I
I
mean,
feel so bad for him.
no, I mean it isn't just him too. It's that guy, that George Sist guy, who rode by and happened to tell Rosecrans, hey, by the way, I think there's a gap in your lines. What you better do something
Yeah.
about it. So he sends an order for Thomas J. Wood to move. And when he moves, he opens up this big truck lane that Longstreet just happens to be right there, drives right through. I mean, who's to say? I mean, Longstreet probably gets through him, but I mean, that's not a guarantee. I mean, they had that breakthrough because of that break in the line,
Yeah.
right? But he's whoever said that's right though, because Longstreet is the hero of this as far as that final breakthrough at Horseshoe Ridge and it's Snodgrass Hill. But it didn't have. It should have been harder. It should have been a
Mhm.
lot. It should have been a lot harder. And
I
John
do.
and Hood is great there too, and he gets
Yep.
wounded immediately. He's
Yep.
the drummer from Spinal Tap once again. He always gets knocked out every single
Yep.
time. But again, his men, and when you're talking about the Texans, you talk about all these people at Georgia's, it's kind of the same band you saw at Gettysburg that's going to roll around the previous few months. But again, it is a big part of it. But it's a combination of Longstreet being right place, right time,
Yep.
in a really unfortunate order that was messed up by an orderly going through Thomas J. Wood. So
And
that's
Wood
history. That's
couldn't
how,
do anything about it. Like when he got the order, Wood knew. I've heard accounts where Wood knew. He's like, if I move my men, it's going to create a gap. And someone brought up the fact that he'd been like chewed out by Rosecrans earlier that day and was like, if you disobey this order, you're going to be court-martialed. And he's like, I have no choice. So
he
I have to move my
absolutely.
men.
He knew. He's like, if I screw this up, I'm Thomas J. Wood, I'm going to get traded to the New York Jets. That's kind of what it was.
Yeah.
So, but he got the order, knew it was wrong, and he had to do it. An order is like Charles Mudge, second mass. An order is an order.
Mhm.
It's murder, but it's an order.
Yeah.
But he knew it was a mistake by many of the accounts we've read. And then you're going to give George Thomas credit, obviously, for holding him off just long enough. He does that Charles Tilden thing, where on a much bigger scale, where he has to
Yeah.
stay back and let the army escape, right over to the Tennessee border from Georgia.
Yeah.
So then that's where he gets his name. I don't know if you know that, Mary.
The Rock of Chickamauga. And Caleb says that, he's been always been fascinated. The Confederates suffered more casualties in that victory, not terribly unusual, but still a point to be made.
It was close though.
Yeah, it was close. And yeah, it's like, well, how much of a victory is it really like for them?
Well,
Like,
it's a tactical victory. He drove them off the field, and then that's same reason why McClellan gets the Antietam victory at Antietam, and why these real close battles in Napoleon warfare, you drive the enemy off the battlefield, you get the dub, and so that's what he did.
Yeah, and you look at kind of what happens after that. You have Chickamauga or Chattanooga going into a siege, but you also have all this, miscommunication coming from Bragg after, shockingly, he's not able to communicate with Forrest. Forrest isn't able to communicate with him. And then he gets ticked off at Forrest and pulls some of Forrest guys and gives them to Joe Wheeler. And then Forrest is like, I am done with you. And that's where you have that, maybe it happened, maybe it didn't, that conversation where Forrest basically was like, if you ever come at me again, it'll be at the peril of your life. Where Forrest is like, if you ever, say this to me, I will slap you and make you forget, like make you regret it or something like that. It's
these guys hate each other in a lot of different ways. I mean, we talked a lot about Bragg and everybody. We've talked about Grant and Rosecrans, which that's how it is. They don't. It's the heat of the moment. They don't get along, and that's especially when you're looking at Rosecrans, who's slowing down mentally, and it's starting to show. And really, by all accounts, we mentioned this we were talking with the other Darren, British Darren, Spice Girl Darren, about the importance of how history changes if Longstreet doesn't go west. And it's a fact. And if you really trace it through, so Longstreet goes west, just like the 11th Corps and the 12th Corps from the Union, right? He goes west. Let's say he doesn't go west. Say he stays east, right? He's not there at Chickamauga. Chickamauga probably still happens. Bragg probably gets beat because he's in a bad position.
Yeah.
Rosecrans doesn't get fired from Grant. Rosecrans stays in his position. Sherman doesn't come up with Grant. So Sherman's not going to be there for the March of the Sea since it was his idea.
Yeah.
So who knows? Does Grant go to the Trans-Mississippi? Does that where Sherman goes with him? So all of history changes in a lot of different ways. And this isn't just popping 3 gummies and shutting the lights off and letting your imagination run wild. This is like real. If it doesn't happen, you can actually track how it might play itself out historically. So you can say if Longstreet going west, theoretically, obviously leads right to the March to the Sea. It leads to everything. What's poor Margaret Mitchell going to do?
Oh, exactly. Who's she going to be able to make the Godzilla in her story?
She'll be working at the Atlantic Clinique counter instead of writing her book, right? And so that's history, though. But you got it's a what if thing. But Longstreet was obviously instrumental. And then after Battle of Chickamauga, after Chattanooga, He's going to go to Knoxville to try to beat Burnside, and he screws that whole thing up. And then he takes his ball and he goes to winter quarters, refuses to do anything for a while. Then he finally comes back. But you know as well as I do, he went west knowing or thinking he was going to take over for Bragg.
Oh,
He was going to be,
absolutely.
and
Yeah.
he's rubbing, it was like that meme of the guy with his hands behind the tree, right?
Yeah.
He's thinking, oh, here we go now. I'm going to take this, be a big hero in this battle. I'm going to be in charge of the Army of Tennessee, and I'm going to be in charge of the West. And I've got it. This is great. I've got family in South Carolina. They got to come west of me. It's all going to be cool. But you know that's what he was thinking. Had to have been.
Oh,
And
I think so too. And then it very quickly he was like, "Ooh, I really don't want to be out in this toxic environment. This sucks." He realized that pretty quickly when he wasn't able to get through to Bragg what he wants to do. I mean, imagine you're James Longstreet and you roll up to like you're in the Chattanooga area around the 16th, 17th of September. You're getting close there, and you arrive there, and there's no one to meet you at the train station. You got to walk to find the headquarters, and you can't because it's dark out. And then when you do, you find out Bragg's already had a meeting with somebody else. So you don't really know what he said. So he has a meeting with you, and then he has a meeting with someone else after that. You have no idea what's going on. So I think he was like, wow, things are really
yeah,
different out here.
there must have been a lonely, dark
Like,
ride in that train, kind of like me driving back from Massachusetts with you sleeping the entire way, all the way to Gettysburg in the middle of the night. That must
whatever.
I know that feeling.
Oh.
I know that feeling of being lonely and being
Mhm.
dark. But yeah, but it's true though. It is true.
Oh, and so people are on here talking, like David Maxwell says Rosecrans was an incredibly capable commander, but his personality made it easier for him to be disliked. And I said, like, Grant never forgave him for going to the media after I go with the story about drinking. But on the other side of that, once you got in Grant's doghouse, unless your name was Sherman or Sheridan, you likely were never getting out.
But don't you see that the big mass, the big, the dilemma with this though, because he wasn't liked. Okay, who was the one Union general who everybody loved? McClellan. How did
Hillard,
that work?
yep.
How did that work out for him?
It
Everyone
didn't work
hates
out
him.
well, though.
Everybody hates him too.
I know.
So the moral of the story is you're not going to be liked no matter what. And
No, no. And if you, yeah.
and then history, depending on what happens, history is going to make you a good guy or a bad guy. You're gonna be part of the good guys in wrestling or the bad guys in wrestling. That's what history is to determine. But even the most popular people weren't liked by their men.
Yep.
The people who the men did not like turned out to be some of the better generals, right?
Mhm.
So it's all the eye of the beholder with this stuff, and that's why you can't go too crazy with. Well, he wasn't going to go far because the men didn't like him, or Washington didn't like him. There's some truth to the Washington thing, but at the end of the day, you have to realize just how completely incompetent Washington was during all this.
Oh yeah,
I mean,
they didn't, and they were, they're talking about Davis on the Confederate side is also incompetent too with it. And like I said, like anytime someone pulled their friends and neighbors card out for Jeff Davis, he's like, oh yes, we'll find a position for you, unless of course your name was Beauregard, and in that case you're going to be chained to a desk for, you know, however long. Bill Pike asked, was it Rosecrans that Grant spread rumors about that he was a booze hound? Yeah.
yes.
And same with Halleck.
Yeah, the whole thing that goes back to the Battle of Iuka, and Grant had basically disappeared for a couple of days. He just disappears. Who the hell
Yep.
knows, and the battle plays itself out, and the national press is what's going on with the battle, and then a mysterious source shows up in Cincinnati and talks to a newspaper. I think it was a Cincinnati Enquirer, I believe. I could be wrong. I think that's what the newspaper was. And a really close friend of Rosecrans writes a story that Grant was on a bender for 3 days.
Yeah.
And they put one on one together. It's your best buddy. This guy's best buddy's writing the story. And from that point on, they just didn't really get along with each other. It was just a big measuring contest anyway, because Rosecrans was rolling. I mean, you think about Tullahoma, right? You think of all these battles that are coming through. He's a rising star in the Union Army, and so was Grant.
Yeah.
The different timing's a little bit off, but it's similar. And you want to be that guy when it's all said and done. You want to be the man, because they knew that wasn't going to be the 17th president, but there's a pretty good chance it was going to be the 18th president.
Yeah.
which is ended up being with Grant. So they knew that there was the inside track of the White House was being this hero of the Union Army.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of guys vying for it. It's why Gouverneur K. Warren was fired by Sheridan,
Yeah.
because they have these ideas of you want to make sure you're there at the end. And that's the whole thing about it.
Yeah.
Um, but it was no different with Grant and with Rosecrans. I mean, none of these guys got along. I mean, look at McClernand with Grant. He hated him too. They hated
Oh
each
yeah.
other. I mean, they just didn't get along with each other. So it's people always talk about Rosecrans and Grant. They talk about Bragg and pick one. The real big one, if you really want to put some meat to the bone here, is Beauregard and Jefferson Davis, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Oh yeah.
they hated each other more than just about anybody, but they're all personality clashes. Every single one of these guys. None of these
Oh
guys
yeah.
are friendly, fun-loving people. I mean, that's why the whole who you rather have a beer with is the most laughable conversation. The answer is nobody, because would not be fun. It would not be fun.
Well, it depends if you got military person, because I think their military personalities are a bit different than the
Well,
personality that they have at home with their wife and their family and all that. You can see that in some of the letters they're writing. Now, some of them I think they were just a jerk all around, but
to their
um
family's one thing.
yeah.
Some of the letters are at home, their wives, and that's totally understandable. But just meeting up with someone at the old Sweeney's Tavern in Gettysburg after the battle of a beer with the old snapping turtle, that doesn't sound like too much fun
You never know.
to
Maybe
me.
I
I
don't
know,
know.
I
Maybe
know,
it would have been fine.
I know some people in this town would love to get a beer with Grant. I know that for a fact. You know,
There are some people in this town that think they might have been around at the same time as him.
yeah. Some people probably were. Go to the early bird special, the blue and gray. You'll see them.
um and Caleb said they're talking about if Sheridan was, but like I think Caleb said Sheridan was Grant's buddy, and yeah, he was. And I remember one time
That is true.
I referred to Sheridan as being Grant's lapdog, and somebody got like, I can't
I
remember who
know
it
who it
was.
was.
They
I
got
know who it
really angry.
was.
They were like, "That's not true." Blah blah blah. How dare you call him a lapdog? And I'm like, because he was.
Well, that same person said Howard has no sense of humor too. So there you
Oh, I
go.
know.
That's okay. But that's true though. I mean, a lot of these people are all dealing with different things. I mean, don't forget too, most of these guys, even though they were West Pointers and they maybe had a little bit of action in Mexico, maybe a little bit of the Indian Wars, this is not, years and years of fighting wars here. This is all new. Even the West Point people, the Hancocks of the world, the Howards of the world, the Grants of the world, they're all learning on the fly. They're all in charge of a volunteer army for the most part, dealing with volunteers, which is like herding cats.
Yep.
And people wonder why it took McClellan so long to get his shit together with them. Because
Yep.
you deal with farmers and clerks and everything else who just wanted something to do. Now you got to put them turn them into an army. And oh, by the
Yep.
way, they just got smoked at Second Manassas. Now you're coming back for the sequel. And you're gonna, just use some common sense. They don't have that 160 plus year,
No.
hindsight that we have. That some people on Facebook think everybody should have. You know,
So glad I got off some groups because there's, oh God.
it's unhealthy.
I'm just trying to see, like, getting together after action over beers or coffee is a common way to debrief and come down from an adrenaline rush. After Gettysburg, a drink with mead might have been good. That's what Hal said.
I don't know. If you read Kent Masterson Brown's book, The Retreat from Gettysburg, he was not fun to be around up to Gettysburg. These people had just about had it. And so who knows? But it's one of those questions. It's just an insight into who your favorite general is. But I don't think I really be too psyched about that.
I think it's fun to talk. I think it's fun for people to talk about because it shows, you get to hear why people would say that, why they like them. And I don't know, it's a good historical discussion. It's a cool discussion to have with some people because you find out someone might say somebody that you didn't think, like, oh, I never thought of it that way kind of thing. Right. And it's, Bill said Mr. F.J. Hooker and Alfred Pleasanton is who I'd want to beer with.
I mean, Alfred Pleasanton, he'd screw that up. You want to talk about a guy who couldn't. Pleasanton, talk about one of the unsung incompetence of the Civil War is Pleasanton. I mean, my God. And everyone talks about Gettysburg, right? You want to look for a classic F up. Look at Battle of Shepherdstown with him.
Yeah.
Where he was told to supply, cavalry support, for the Corps going over to try to chase Lee into Virginia, and he just, I'm not going to do it. This doesn't show up. And he ends up coming in later on, and it's all disjointed. So he's a clown. Hooker might be fun though. Good muscle, Mary. He probably drinks a Sam Adams probably. He's probably a Bud Light guy though, like everybody else back home.
No, he is probably Sam Adams guy.
I don't know.
He might have liked the pumpkin beer.
We had a good pumpkin beer the other night. That's that smashed pumpkin from from what was that, from Shipyard?
Shipyard, yeah.
That was a nice surprise.
David Maxwell said, I bet Hooker and Butterfield were fun at parties. They were the known party animals, the AOP.
I bet they were. I bet you they were. And there's a few guys like that, certainly.
Carney was known for having parties.
Yeah, Sickles sounds like he'd be fun, but I don't think he really would be. He was more of a I think if you're looking for Butterfield might be kind of fun. I think Hooker might be the better one. Who knows? But those are fun conversations to have when you think about it. I still say nobody, but if I had to pick one, I would say Joe.
You just pick somebody and just like forget what you think about it for a second. Have some fun with it.
I know, fine.
I think Blackjack Logan. What's the other one? Kilpatrick. He probably had some stories.
Kilpatrick probably would. Some of these guys probably, they were still young. They probably did have, they did have some experience. They probably had a lot of fun. Kilpatrick was a party boy. He probably would. But a lot of the guys,
if you read Sherman's memoirs and Howard's memoirs and all that, they've got some great stories about Kilpatrick in there.
Hey, Kilpatrick is still the only guy who purposely had his photograph taken with prostitutes during the Civil War. You can Google the picture. He's sitting on there on the deck. You know what's so funny is I Googled that picture one day, or someone asked me about that. I sent it to him, and when you look up the caption, it was like he's sitting there. These women, these women there, and they're prostitutes, but the caption says something along the lines of a photo taken with local women at their home or something like that. It's just the way it's written up is so hilarious. But
local women at their home.
Or it wasn't local. It was something like a locals, but it was definitely, they went out of the way to do prostitutes, which is kind of funny,
Not to be a downer, but whose anniversary of their death is tomorrow is David Ireland.
David Ireland, that's right. David Ireland certainly is. Yep. He tough way for him to go. And he's another guy. He's one of those big losses, but certainly, he's one
I would have liked to have talked to, because he was at the battles for Chattanooga, and he had to take over when George Sears Green got hurt, and that's when he started leading the 137th New York. David Maxwell said, "I'd like to see a cage match between Carney and McClellan."
Yeah, that's a different story. That could be kind of fun too. But a wrestling match might be a good time.
I know Battle of Gettysburg podcast has discussed that before, I think.
Oh, yeah, see, that's the thing. Is at least I'm talking about wrestling. Old Hessler's freaking ears are going to be burning here in a little bit.
Yeah, come on here. You're talking about Sickles?
Best wrestler is Sickles.
God. But yeah, when you talk about that picture of Kilpatrick, it made me think of that. Not that it's anything the same, but the final picture of David Ireland where he's standing in Atlanta.
That's right.
And this is his last known picture.
Yeah, well, in front of Hood's old headquarters. Ireland was the first guy in. But I mean, Ireland, again, people associate him with, if they've ever heard of him, associate him with Gettysburg. But he was in the movie, so not everybody knows who he was. But one of the heroes of Lookout Mountain, Chattanooga. I mean, certainly, you mentioned Did you mention Wauhatchie?
Yes, it was at the battles for Chattanooga.
You mentioned Ringgold, but Baller, Wauhatchie, certainly Lookout Mountain, Ringgold Gap, the whole deal. So he was somebody who was very, very underrated, but he dies, so he doesn't get to tell his story. If he lives, he's going to continue to climb. He'll be one of those people at the end of the war who people talk about. Mm-hmm. But unfortunately, he didn't make it. He got sick.
No, what was it? Dysentery?
It was something. I don't know. It was probably one of those diseases on the TV.
The TV disease. David, you've got the TV disease.
No, but it probably was dysentery, or who knows? I'm sure it was, but it was
I'm just seeing
that.
If it said, just looking at a website. Dysentery.
Yeah. And that's a sad story too, because he was supposed to come home to his wife, and then
Yeah,
the day that his wife is expecting him to come home, he shows up and he's in a coffin. And that's how she found out that he died. So it's a sad story with
yeah,
him, but he was a baller. He was.
oh yeah,
He reminds me a lot of Rufus Dawes in a lot of different
yeah.
ways.
He's also got that don't give a F look when you look at his picture.
No, yeah, he was all business. I mean, he really has a couple of pictures taken. There's the one that everyone
Yeah,
sees. It. Then there's the one. If you Google the picture of the Union at Atlanta, I forget how you'll it's you can make him out. He's one of the guys in the front, but he's set back, so it isn't like a picture of Ireland. It was a picture
yeah,
someone took of the Union guy standing in the front yard, but he's one of the guys there. Yeah,
yeah.
great story. Great story.
Yeah, like he was succeeded Greene in the command of the Battle of Waxahachie. He was with under Geary at Lookout Mountain, and then he was fighting against Claiborne at the Battle of Ringgold Gap. And that is where you can see a monument to the 137th New York is at Ringgold. It's
Mhm.
next to a storage shed.
It's more like one of those electrical sheds, one of those like it has like a thing and there's like a fence around it. And it's always humming.
Yeah.
It's
But there was
one of,
also, I remember there being a chain link fence, and it looked like a place where they kept all their like their vehicles and stuff, like kind of
yeah.
one
You
of
had to
those
walk
town
on the train
sheds.
tracks.
Yeah,
So no, he has a little monument down where those all those Confederate
yeah,
guys are listed. Where all the names are spelled wrong.
yeah.
Banbury and
Oh,
Govan.
Banbury, Govan and Banbury. Yeah,
Yeah, but he has a plaque there too, if I remember correctly. I'm pretty sure he does.
yeah,
No, but he's a big loss too. And conversely, the other guy at the other end of the battlefield is Chamberlain. His birthday was yesterday,
yeah,
and I know a lot of people who don't like Chamberlain because they like Ireland. They think he
yeah.
doesn't get enough credit. Some people hated Chamberlain; they like him again. So it's the weirdest thing. It's the funniest thing how life is sometimes.
I
But
have
hey,
to say, I'm more of a Team Ireland person, but that is not at all to discredit what Chamberlain does. What he does is, you know, just as good. Chamberlain also was very blessed to live after the war, and he was quite a good writer. So he's able to write. You don't have that with Ireland. So, if Ireland had lived, maybe we would have writings of his, or who knows, maybe he would have been like Charles Tilden and not written anything about his experiences in the war,
well, that's what we'll
which
never
makes it
know.
harder to research them, right? When they don't
It's
write.
why there's not a lot of really good firsthand accounts of Thomas, right?
Mhm.
Because his wife cleared his history cache, wanted to destroy all his notes, and
Yeah.
she did, and he dies relatively soon. So he doesn't live that long after the war. So at the end of the day, you left with one of the big boys, the big generals in Thomas, who there's not a hell of a lot spoken about him.
No, there's not too much written. Jeffrey says, I think that just the average soldier would be great to have a beer with. No politics, no ego, just the honest, blunt truth from the ground guys. Yeah, that's
Well, I mean, that's where the sweet spot is in all these things. All the best Civil War stories, all the soldier stories. I mean, um, but the generals, I mean, they're a different breed. But if you want to, have a beer with Elijah Hunt Rhodes or
yeah.
Abner Small or and any of those guys, Watkins, and you just that you're right. That would be the way to go, I think, because you find out some different
Yeah.
stories.
Yeah. And I think someone like Minty or Wilder, we get like, especially Wilder. Wilder's this guy that like after the war, he ends up moving to Chattanooga and becoming the mayor because he enjoyed his time there so much. I
Yeah.
think he would have a lot of great stories. Maybe you can answer this. This is going back to David Ireland, but so if he had survived, would he have been on the March to the Sea?
No,
Who,
I
because
think he would have gone with Schofield, going to
is
Tennessee.
that who is that who
I
Greene's
think
guys went with?
yeah, I'm not, but they mixed them a little bit too. It wasn't all consistent.
Yeah.
I just think he was probably. I don't know. This is just a gut feeling. Because I've thought about this question before, and in my mind, I've always had mentally him going with Schofield.
No, if he stays with the 137th New York, he would have been on the March.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean right. But that doesn't mean they're going to keep him
Oh,
there
that's
too.
true. Yeah.
He's gone, so there's no sense pulling the whole thing out of that. He very well could have, but I
Hmm.
think someone like him would be more instrumental to go with the John Schofields than to go with Howard or go with Slocum. I mean, I could be totally wrong, but I mean, the 137 probably, if he survives, probably goes goes with Schofield. And this is just me spitball. I'm just thinking
Yeah.
of how his personality, his dynamic would have played. I think that's probably what he would have done. But again, we'll never know.
Yeah, no, I'm just looking at a
Never know.
page about the 137th New York, and they went all the way to Bentonville, which is
Yeah.
pretty cool. So yeah, they would have been with Schofield, so left wing.
Yeah. I mean, realistic speaking, but it's tough to say. I just think that some with his experience, I think they would have wanted to go figure we're going to go to Nashville and we're going to fight versus we're going to go to Savannah and go from that. I don't know. I guess I'm just thinking about how his fighting tactics would have been. He'd be more, but I'm using. They never knew there was going to be not a lot of they didn't know they would have some of an easier ride going to Georgia than going to Tennessee too. But I guess in my head, because of the fighting that went on, they would have had a more experienced fighting a guy like Colonel Chamberlain. So that's probably why.
You mean Colonel Ireland?
Colonel Ireland, yeah, Chamberlain. He's the same. See, we go. See, I like both of them.
I do too. You can like both.
That is true. I like both.
James said sounds right, so I think he's referring to like he would have gone with Schofield.
Yeah, I mean, it depends if they mix it up again. That's how they do it.
But you have McPherson, Logan, and Ireland. What a combo!
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's the thing too. Is you looking at these guys coming into Atlanta, you had a real A team of generals coming through with Sherman, with Sherman. So Sheridan there, and you look at I mean, not even talking McPherson. Yes.
No, and that was the episode we just released.
Yeah.
A couple weeks ago we just released that one.
Yeah.
It'll be 2 weeks this Friday that we released it. So we recorded an episode about the life of McPherson. And it was really good. It was a good one.
I typed D. Mistake.
Yeah.
Just curious if I could type.
Oh yeah, because Jeffrey asked, how many different cigar taste tests did you get to have before you decided on the official one? It was a surprise.
So what the way that whole thing worked out was we were maybe 6 months, a year ago now, actually about a year. We moved down here. We talked about doing a cigar brand with Getty's Gear. And we talked about it a little bit off and on here and there. And it just kind of, we forgot about it. It just kind of fell off the table. And then we did our 5th anniversary thing a week or so ago, and they did it on their own and just released it to the cigar line.
Mm-hmm.
So and they're really good too. And people are buying.
They're very good.
You can get them by mail. You can do different things.
Yeah.
But they're really good. They're lightly soaked in rum. Getty's Gear cigars are great. They hand make them there too. People don't realize that they actually make those. They put the tobacco right in there. They put the wrapper on it. They put it in the glass tube. They wax it. It's all basically all they get is the tobacco sent to them, and they have to put it all together. So it's truly a real homemade cigar. So if you get one, try it. I like that one. I like the one with Hancock on it because it's got that sweet taste to it.
Yeah.
Those are my 2 favorite ones. But the Breakfast Club cigar is really, really good.
I like the Admiral Farragut one.
And they call it the Lost Order
191 cigar.
And so what we're trying to do is sell in 3-packs and wrap them up with a copy of Lost Order 191 and wrap them together and sell them that way. So that's probably what's going to happen too. So that's
Bill Etzkorn said, I know the guy that bought the first one.
Yeah, Moody thought he had him beat, but Etzkorn beat him. That's hilarious. But no, they're good cigars. I don't know if Bill is on here, if he smoked his yet. I don't know if he did or he didn't, but it is a good cigar. It's really
it's good. I've had a couple of them now, and they're very, very good. I really enjoy them.
That was
Jeffrey said had a Lincoln victory one after the Bills comeback on Sunday night.
I better smoke those before January, Jeff. Then you got to go all the way. You got to wait until next September to smoke. But they are good though. I mean, and that's the thing about it though. Is you've said this before, but I've said some really, really hardcore cigar nerd aficionado types, like the craft beer people like you who get all snooty when they can't taste the chutney in it.
I drink Yuengling.
I know, but they all say they're really, really good. The Farragut one, the chocolate one's really good too.
It's a cherry one.
Well, no, they told me it has a slight chocolate taste to it.
Well, I'm gonna have to ask them for one.
Yeah, that's a chance to ask. But they're all good though, and I haven't had a bad one over there yet. And they even have the old school ones. You get the Silver Ear ones, those real thin, long ones. But yeah, if you haven't been to Getty's Gear yet, we talk about them all the time because they're good
Yep.
friends of ours. But they're really really good though. And you can get the coffee's fantastic.
Yep.
All the cat treats you can get. You can buy a Gettysburg
Yep.
hat, Mary, a hat or a T-shirt, a hoodie.
Yep. We have not bought the cat treats from Mosby yet. We'll have to do that.
You could buy a big knife. They even have a knife and you can buy in the cabinet. But they got a lot of cool stuff, and they're great people. Good family-owned restaurant. I mean,
Mhm.
from their own business. I mean, so definitely good people.
Yeah. Yeah, I was trying to think what we were talking about.
McPherson.
Oh,
We started talking about
McPherson. Yeah, so we did
McPherson.
released our episode about McPherson.
And finally, you're starting to say McPherson instead of McPherson. I got you off that thing.
Well,
Because as they told me, there is no fear in McPherson. Someone with that same last name told me that one time. So it's stuck in my head. So it's McPherson. McPherson's great. That his story is really, really fantastic. I didn't realize, but we got some comments about that. I'm
people
just
cried.
like it was like a tearjerker type thing. And I don't remember I remember telling the story, but it wasn't. We've had more stories. I mean, some of the saddest. The horse one was a sad story we did.
Yeah.
The Reynolds one. This one was just I thought was okay, but people said they got busted up by it. I don't think love it all.
The Franklin episode we recorded was the
Yeah.
hardest one for me to edit. Like that's one where I had to like actually like walk away from it because I don't know, something about the Battle of Franklin always gets to me. Like I don't know what it is, but like when I had to edit that one, I was like, this is like some heavy shit. Like,
oh, it's definitely it's definitely some tough battles.
that's a tough, I don't know, that is a tough battle for me. And I don't know why. I've never visited there before. Like I just that's a tough one for me. And the editing for that episode was definitely one of the harder ones.
Yeah. Well, Franklin, I mean, it's a tough battle. I mean, you talk about all those six generals, the Confederate side getting killed and mortally wounded, and we talk about McPherson being killed. We talk about all these other guys getting killed: Granbury, Franklin, John Adams, Otto Straw, all these guys, and what kind of future they would have brought to Reconstruction afterwards. Because you're talking late in the war here with Franklin. You're not talking about Shiloh here. So how is those losses impacted? Obviously Claiborne. I mean, what's going to happen with him? But Franklin's a difficult one because we've talked about this before. It just seems like every battle after Atlanta just seems like it's just window dressing and it's unnecessary death. It's just over with. And so when you see Franklin the way it all plays itself out, it's kind of tough to sit there and go. Again, we know now, but they didn't know then. But you just sit there and say, "It's over, Johnny. It's over." Right?
Yep.
Let's just stay here and just ride this thing out. It's over.
Yeah.
And that's why you saw a little bit of Bentonville, where you could sort of see Sherman kind of pulling off the dogs a little bit.
Yeah. And even Bentonville, like, going there and now studying it again more, like it's kind of like I'm starting to feel kind of like a little bit, it's not the carnage that Franklin was, but it's still bad. Hardy loses his son. It's like the kid's what, 17, 16 years old, and he just wants to go fight in a battle, and Hardy's like, sure, go, and then he gets killed.
What is it? He wants to play war. What was that guy said?
Oh, the reenactor we ran, I play war.
I play war, yeah.
That's what the reenactor said that we ran into.
And Hardy, ironically, in Bentonville, his kid probably said the same thing.
Yeah.
But a lot of them, though, you look at some of these real miserable battles. I mean, I just finished Hartwig's book about Antietam, and towards the battle ends, Shepperson ends, and then he talks about the physical, the trauma of all these soldier stories about what happened. And you talk about some of these guys who just lost their minds in Antietam, where they just literally they would get hit so hard mentally they'd be physically sick for weeks.
Yeah.
And they didn't fight again for 3 more months until they got into Fredericksburg. But the psychological warfare. I mean, there's that story, with William Christian, General Christian, right? The first day at the cornfield, you're supposed to have 6 brigades attacking on the Union side, right?
Yeah.
With Ricketts and Doubleday's division. Only 1 attacks. Duryea's guys. William Christian, he's leading his brigade. He's riding on his horse, and the shells start falling, and he turns in his horse and just runs and disappears. Just leaves. The hell with this. and he races. He doesn't stop till he gets home. He must have been living somewhere nearby. And they found him weeks later after the battle. They went to go find him. And when they got him, he was sitting on his porch on top of his banister of his front of his house, riding it like it was a horse, calling out to soldiers that didn't exist. He'd lost his mind in the
Yeah.
middle of Battle of Antietam.
Wow.
And people, they joke about it. They said they could General White Feather, they called him, because that's what you called someone who took off. But he literally had a nervous breakdown. And when he went back to his house, he was sitting on the railing of his porch, like he pretending he was on a horse, yelling out, calling out orders to his front yard. And that's how they found him.
Wow.
And it's sad. I mean, it's
Yeah.
funny in some ways, but it's also sad in some things to talk about some
Yeah.
of these stories about how a lot of these guys. You look at Rufus Dawes
Mhm.
right off the top. You talk to these stories. They never got over it. You mentioned Rosecrans, and
Yeah.
they called PTSD nostalgia. That's what the phrase was back then. They didn't know what the hell it was, but they just noticed that these people would just be quiet. They'd stare off into space. You couldn't talk to them, and they just thought they were having nostalgia, thinking about days of yore.
Yeah.
But it was that shell shock kicking in, that PTSD kicking in. And when you're talking about some of these battles,
Yeah.
I mean, there is no bloodier day than Antietam. There's none.
No.
Chickamauga is the second bloodiest battle of the war after
Yeah.
Gettysburg. People don't really think about that. What the psychological trauma of these guys went through during these battles. That's the 130th Pennsylvania who were in charge of the burial details at Antietam. Just talk about some of the stories, because they said the smell was so bad, they weren't wearing masks because they were zombies. It was burying the bodies like they were robots. It just nothing bothered them. And so you wonder the human toll of these things. And so it's sad.
Yeah. Oh yeah, there's some comments here. Gina mentions that I think she said she lived outside the battlefield of Franklin for a couple of years. She said Spring Hill is hard too, especially when it hits you how Franklin could have been avoided if they just heard them passing, the Yanks passing. And then David Maxwell mentions that, thinking of these late war battles, I'm always reminded of the rant Sherman had just before he left Louisiana, the rant to his friend Boyd, where he's like, this is going to be a long war. You have no idea what you're getting into with us. And then Gina mentions there's the officer that charged his men to their deaths at Stones River. So he quits, goes and sets up a farm only to have the war come to his land, and he was caught in it again. And we mentioned Ambrose Bierce in our episode with Daz last week. But James mentions how haunting his work is.
Yeah, Ambrose Bierce is an interesting guy because he got to a whole bunch of battles. Pickett's Mill is the one he really talks a lot about.
He was angry.
Because that was the one he talked. But this is a guy who, after the war, he just decided to go write. He wrote stories, and he went to go look at the old battlefields and just drifted off. And he Irish goodbye life. He just didn't know. They said he maybe went into Mexico, got killed out of Mexico, but no, he just kind of vanished. He was one part Edgar Allan Poe, one part Stephen King. That's who he was, with war experience.
He apparently died in Chihuahua, Mexico. He was married to Mary Ellen Day, and his children were Helen Bierce, Lee Bierce, and Day Bierce.
Yeah.
And he wrote the Crime of Pickett's Mill was written, and I think it was basically saying this is on Sherman.
Well, if you think about it, though, you wonder what's going on in his head, right? About everything he says, because when you think about what he saw, and he wrote about all these things, it all comes from a dark place. If you really think about it,
Well, with Bierce, with Pickett's Mill, and I 100% agree with him about this. He was ticked because Sherman did not even mention it in his memoirs.
Yeah,
and he was like, "Are you kidding me?" Like, because it was, for the guys that fought at Pickett's Mill, it was one of the worst battles they'd ever been in. And it's a small battle that, you go to the battlefield there, you'll see how bad it was. You'll stand on the Union side and be like, what the hell were they thinking? It's a ravine that it drops like this. And then you got to run up the other side like this. And you're going towards Hiram Granbury. Not fun.
It's exactly. I mean, that's no fun.
Well, yeah, because you remember when we were there, remember how the ravine was like this, and then you would have to come up the other side.
Exactly.
But by the way, when you're going up the other side, Claiborne's guys, including Hiram Granberry, are going to be shooting at you. Like, and, Howard, he said that it was the way he described it was he said it was a nightmare. Like
Yeah.
that was, and I mean, this is a guy who's been in a lot of battles by this point, but he said like what he saw at Pickett's Mill and what he heard, because
Right.
he was laying out in the field with the wounded men for a while, because they couldn't get to him. And he's like, this is a nightmare. And he actually talks about what you talked about, like kind of the zombies burying the bodies.
Yeah.
He said that the guys that buried the bodies all got drunk, and he was like, I didn't blame them. Like Howard's like, I'm not getting on them about drinking, because what those guys had to do was
Yeah.
terrible.
No,
Like,
absolutely.
and then Ambrose is on here. He said Bierce's short story in Chickamauga is pretty haunting, with the deaf child seeing the mutilated wounded soldiers and his dead mom. Oh my God, I've never read that.
Yeah, that's the one that's the story that's probably most popular for. I think that specific way. He tells a story of Chickamauga through the eyes of a child. It's certainly an interesting read, no question.
Yep. Here's a question for you.
Yeah.
Noelle's on here, our friend Noelle. She asks,
Oh, hello, Noel.
has anyone ever looked into the post-Civil War suicide rate?
Yeah, the book that Drew Gilpin Foss wrote, The Republic of Suffering. They talk about that, and I might be a little wrong on the numbers, but it's stuck in my head. The suicide rate in the Union Army during the war, they said, was about 15 per 100,000 soldiers. Okay, but then after the war, it jumped to 30 per 100,000. So they figured how the number plays itself out. So it ends up being whatever percentage it was, but the suicide rate jumped 100% after the war. So this is probably the PTSD kicking in. And these guys, we saw that with like Emory Upton, for example, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, and I know like the first year when black soldiers were in the Civil War, it was just about 20 per 100,000 the first year, and then it dropped big time. So a lot of them killed themselves early, but it was pretty consistent. But it jumped from like 15 to 30 per 100,000 after the war ended. So it's pretty significant. This is the Union side. The Confederates didn't keep any records with this stuff, so we'll never know.
Well, I would suspect it was probably a similar rate on the Confederate side.
Well, I mean, probably more. I mean, they didn't keep really any real death records. When you look at some of these battles, in Tita, for example, they didn't really keep any exact records. You just guessed.
No, and I mean and we've talked about this many times on here. The whole PTSD thing is definitely a thing that happens. It would obviously, like, I think that's what happened to Rosecrans, Rufus Dawes, and we talked about that with Darren last week on the Chickamauga episode, that we don't know how these guys went through what they did and what they saw. And I mean, obviously they all had their coping mechanisms, just as people that suffer from it today do. But back then it was, I think, he didn't have the diagnosis, you didn't have the health care that we have today to help them deal with it, or people to talk to. And they say Tom Chamberlain apparently suffered from it. I would suspect that Chamberlain himself probably did. And I think some of them dealt with it in their writing. I mean, I've read, Howard's memoirs and enough of his letters to be able to sense maybe a little bit of it in him too. The way he writes about the war and about, his description of Pickett's Mill it's vivid, and it's haunting, because he's able to describe it.
No, that's the thing too, is you're never going to know completely with this stuff how it goes. But Foss' book is really, really good if you're into that stuff. If you're really into the death and disease and misery aspect of the Civil War, if you're really in a great mood, you want to bring yourself down, read that book, because it talks about every aspect of the soldier's life, and dying, disease, PTSD, all that stuff. So it was something just to think about, if you're into that. But the suicide rate it seems like should be higher, but again, you take these numbers with a grain of salt. You know what I mean? But that's how it is.
Oh yeah, because they weren't recording it like, like we do today, but you can sometimes read between the lines in their letters. Oh, Gina asked which book. It's called The Republic. I'll put it in the chat here. It's called The Republic of Suffering,
Suffering.
by Drew.
Drew Gilpin Faust.
All right, there we go. Okay, got it there.
It sounds just as uplifting as the title.
The Republic of Suffering.
That's one of those books you read like 10 pages at a time and you go, damn, you know.
Yeah. Well, that's what I tell people. Like, people are like, how do you, because we'll talk at work about what we're reading, and my supervisor and I, we're both into the romance novels. Uh, so we'll read those, but then, I say, like, I read them because I need a break from the Civil War. I can't just immerse myself in the war, because if I do that, that's not good. Like, it's not good to be, you got to have that. I personally need that break. So I will read, like, or listen, I guess, because my commute is an hour to and from Maryland. So, like, I'll listen to a romance, or right now I'm listening to like a fantasy one called The Enchanted Greenhouse or something like that.
What happened to you?
I'm a librarian. I have to listen to books. I have to pay for,
I've never listened to an audiobook. I've always just read. I've never listened to a book.
Because I commute, I got into it. I'm
Well,
like, I need something.
You still read while you're driving.
Oh yeah, that'll work out well going through the mountains.
Yeah,
Noelle said she's gonna look for that in Ambrose Bierce's writings. I've been getting into personal accounts lately. Yeah, Ambrose Bierce's, he's I don't know what happened to him. He
no,
saw some stuff.
he's a good book. I mean, he's like one of the first Halloween writers. I mean, he's like
Yeah.
he's a little bit like dollar store Edgar Allan Poe. I mean, he is, but
One of his inspirations was Poe.
yeah, Edgar Allan Poe was in the military.
Mhm.
He was at Fort Moultrie. He was
Yep.
He was a sergeant major at Fort Moultrie before the Civil War. Edgar Allan
Yep.
Poe, but he's more like a Stephen King than a Poe.
Yeah.
If you really want to think about it, that's kind of what he is.
Yeah, and he sorry, I think, but the anger that you can just feel, his anger towards Pickett's Mill in the crime of Pickett's Mill, how angry he was with Sherman, for not even mentioning it in his memoirs and not really wanting to talk about it, because it was a huge mistake on Sherman's part and Thomas's, and I mean,
Yeah.
Howard too. I mean, imagine you're getting that, what was that telegram or that note that Thomas got from Howard, where he was like, the Confederates are nearby, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
He ended it with, I think,
I
question mark.
think. Yeah, well, he was in. Yeah, you couldn't see 2 feet in front of me. It was in the middle of the dense middle of. You've been to Dallas, Georgia, walking the woods out there. That's the woods.
Yeah, that's
This place that no humans ever stepped in out there to this day.
yeah,
You're in the middle of nowhere.
we were there. It was a bright sunny day, and we had to be careful.
No, it was like cloudy and drizzly while we were there.
Not at Pickett's Mill. It
You
was
were.
a chicken. Really? I thought
Yeah.
it was sunny.
No, it was like cloudy and miserable.
Well, what do
It
I
wasn't.
know?
It was just cloud. It was just cloudy. It was overcast. I remember that.
But it's just.
It was a clear but sunny day.
Anyway, go to Pickett's Mill. It's a great visit.
Circus music in your head at the time, I think.
Probably. MJ asked, has there been a book written about mental health in the Civil War?
Yeah, it's all in that same book. It's all in the Faust book.
Yeah, Drew Gilpin Faust, Republic of Suffering.
Every miserable aspect of human being life in the Civil War is in that book. I mean, you got chapters on disease, being executed, running from home. It's called This Republic of Suffering for a reason, and it talks about all that stuff. But the problem is all speculation, because there's just not a lot of hardcore facts, because they didn't understand what a lot of these diseases are, especially the mental diseases.
No,
I mean, they didn't even know what infection was back then for the most part. But that book is a fascinating book, though, because it's just because it's a downer. It's just, you read these stories, they just, it's like reading John Ransom's Andersonville Diary. You read that, you're like, oh my God, it's just one of those. But it's like chapter by chapter. It's like being shot in the Civil War, amputated, dying of disease, drinking the green water and being sick. And all this stuff.
There's still people that do that.
Oh, the campaigners.
I'm on a campaign. I'm going to drink the
But
green water.
but when you
Yes.
when you read some of these books, and and that's why Scott's book is so good on the one he just did of I Dread the Thought of the Place Antietam, because he talks a lot about the stories. And what's fascinating about that book is when the battle ends, like I said a little while ago, he talks about the physical and emotional trauma. He has a whole chapter basically talking about the aftermath. He talks about how Antietam is really when women really kind of got into the nursing part of the Civil War. Like Jonathan Letterman sets up his field hospitals, places like Frederick and places like that. Yeah. Everybody knows about Clara Barton. But there are other ones, one named Maria Hall, 26-year-old nurse, who's kind of a similar to Arabella Barlow.
Barlow, yeah.
Because she was down there too, and she had to treat Francis down there too. But you talk about how when they had no bandages, and the Christian Coalition, the U.S. Sanitary Commission, hadn't really been started yet until that battle. And they were trying to get, McClellan's trying to write back to Halleck and Stanton saying, we need bandage, we need stuff. This coalition wants to help us. Like, nope, we're not. You tell them you cannot help. Like, go to hell. I mean, are you kidding me? These guys show up with bandage. I'm going to tell them to go pound sand because it's not government issued. And so a year later, they're at Gettysburg. You see the Christian Coalition and the U.S. Sanitary Coalition, because from Antietam they stuck with the army after that point. Yeah, but they all kind of came out of the woodwork for that.
I think
when you look at George B. Anderson, he gets shot in the ankle, a Confederate at the Sunken Road, and he doesn't realize the bullet's still in him. He ends up dying in December from an infection of an ankle wound. And he's one of the 6 generals killed at Antietam. Wow. That's how bad it was. And the Confederate side was 10 times worse than the Union side as far as medication, because they were stranded. They were in the middle of nowhere. Yeah. It was the Union who had to treat them, obviously, after the battle. Yeah. And just hearing a lot of the really humanitarian stories that come out of that battle of the Union guys helping Confederates. And it really, his book does a real good job explaining that. It really puts a face on a lot of that battle, which is pretty good.
Maria's just got on here. Hi, Maria.
Maria Black.
Yep. Jeffrey said, speaking of books that you thank you, Darren, for the Antietam books, starting with Sears before diving into Hartwig's.
Yeah, if you're gonna, I don't want to say Sears is not really a quote starter book, but if Antietam probably is. Hartwig's book, it's like Coddington on steroids, if you're interested in the Gettysburg thing. The problem with Sears, though, is he, not that it really doesn't matter. He never went to the battlefield. He never visited Antietam. No. A lot of the stories he talks about are slanted against McClellan specifically. A lot of Scott's book, he talks a lot about a guy named Ezra Carman, who's a colonel of the 13th New Jersey. Yeah. And he was there and he fought at the battle. He became the Batchelder of Antietam. So he told everybody was, where they were fighting. And he talks a lot about him, but Hartwig's book is very, very, very detailed. I mean, it'll make your brain hurt after a while. Sears's book, with the slants that he puts on, does tell the story well. He does. So you get a good, I don't want to say Reader's Digest version, and it's still 300 pages. Yeah. Read that one. And then if you really want to get more into it, get into the Hartwig books. What was the other one I read that I didn't like?
Fierce Glory.
Yeah, that wasn't that good. I didn't like that one.
It just kind of went off what Sears wrote. There's another one, but is it Dan Vermilya?
Vermilya's awesome. He's a good writer. Yep.
Yeah, he's got one for Emerging Civil War.
And John Hoptack, our friend here from Gettysburg, he has, I think, the best book on the South Mountain. So if you really want to get into this, you read Hoptack's South Mountain book, then you read Sears, and then you read Hartwig. What's good about the Sears book is he talks a lot about the Maryland campaign. He talks about 191. He talks about Kershaw and McLaws up at Maryland Heights and Loudon Heights Bolivar, the whole Harper's Ferry story. He tells that whole story really, really well. So you don't even get to Antietam until you're happy with the book. Versus Hartwig's book, it jumps right in, but he has a really vivid description of Shepherdstown afterwards, Williamsport with Jeb Stuart, and then he gets into the aftermath. So if you read both together, if you read the Scott book on the end, Sears in the middle, and Hoptack at the beginning, it gives you a really good 360 view of the Maryland campaign,
Mhm.
which I think is
Yeah.
the best campaign in the Civil War. I'm biased, but I admittedly I think that's the best one.
That's like, I mean, I learned a lot about the Maryland campaign from you, and it's stuff I need to read more about it. Right now, I'm so focused on Chickamauga and wanting to read that whole trilogy. And I'm really enjoying it. For the just to give the Western theater a voice, the Dave Powell books about
Mm,
Chickamauga are excellent, and he's also got books about the in the Emerging Civil War series. He's got books about the battles for Chattanooga as well, including Ringgold Gap,
yeah.
which is awesome. Sometimes Ringgold Gap gets forgotten about in the battles for Chattanooga, but it is the final, for me, it is the final battle in the Chattanooga campaign.
Yeah, I think that's the case because that was them trying to get the supplies out of there, and
Mhm.
trying to get the so it's definitely part of it.
Yeah, and
Um,
that's when Bragg had to go to Claiborne again and said, "So, can you save us again? Work your
yeah.
magic, Irishman."
But it is nice though if you think about it, if you do read, if you really get in the Maryland campaign and you look at the gaps, the South Mountain, people realize that's the first battle that generally lost in the Confederacy as a general
Mhm.
was South Mountain. And if you can go to those gaps and you can get an idea of the best ones, every one was a little bit different.
Mhm.
And you look at how important Crampton's Gap was because slowing that Sixth Corps, William Franklin's guys, with the First New Jersey, all the keeping them away from Harper's Ferry. So Stonewall could take Harper's Ferry, and then go off to Antietam.
Yeah.
If it is for Crampton's Gap, that whole Harper's Ferry gets blown up. Everything changes, and then
I
Lee has to retreat.
I drive through a mountain to get like over a mountain to get to work. I don't know how they like on those twisty, windy roads and at that time, and sometimes I drive by, is it Williamsport for the retreat?
No, you wouldn't be that far up. You probably go.
I
You're
drove
in
by there
Hagerstown.
today.
No, yeah. It depends on which way you go.
Yeah.
Um, that's why you're so late today. You went to Williamsport.
I went through Williamsport in the morning.
Yeah.
It was the shortest route for me.
But you know what's cool though is there are a lot of guys. People don't really, Thomas Munford is cavalry. If you don't think about him, but this was Howell Cobb. We talk about him a lot. He's the guy who Dahlgren was trying to chase down. Dahlgren's
Yeah.
raid
Yeah.
was one of the guys there, but he's the one who kind of saves the Confederate bacon. When you're looking at guys who like potentially saved the Confederacy in the Maryland campaign, he's a politician, not exactly fun-loving guy. He's a one to study too, no question.
Yep. Mark Blanchard's on here.
Mark Blanchard.
Because he mentions another book about mental health is Invisible Wounds by Dylan Carroll. And I think someone mentioned that up here as well. I'm just going back through the comments. Let me see here. Someone else mentioned it too, the book by Dylan Carroll. Just trying to find it here. Of course, now I can't find it. Oh, I found it. David Maxwell mentioned it too. And then Midnight in America by Jonathan White is another one. Um, yeah, Mark says hi.
Mark's the man. Mark is the man.
And
I
MJ,
got a story to tell Mark offline when we talk to him later about a mutual acquaintance we ran into not so long ago. Next time I see it, it's not something for this. It's something else. It's something for offline. So it's like he'll get a kick out of it.
Ambrose says, I'll add my bias due to being from Kansas, include Price's Missouri expedition campaign.
That's a good one. We did a whole episode on that one. I thought we
Mhm.
did with
We
Sterling
did
Price and um,
we did Pea Ridge and Wilson's Creek.
that's right.
Is that the Missouri expedition campaign?
Yeah,
Okay.
with Lyon and Alton Nathaniel Lyon and those guys. That was yeah, that was a long time ago we did that one.
Yep. That was a long time ago. There's been some great episode suggestions, by the way, from people on this. Over the years we've been doing this. I can say over the years now because we've been doing this for 5 years.
Yeah. Well, it's funny when someone will say, "Hey, remember that episode you guys did on the Battle of Raymond?" I'm like, "No." Like, things like that. I'm like, "Oh yeah, I sort of remember it." I remember
Yeah.
the memes sometimes. But
Yeah. Oh, James said need more Price and Steel.
Yeah, we're gonna do more Trans Mississippi too.
I
We're gonna do more.
know.
We're gonna do more Navy,
Yeah.
but it's fine. I think that's we're gonna be able to do the Battle of Harper's Ferry next week, and then later in the month we're gonna do Laura Radcliffe and Antonia
Antonia
Ford,
Ford. Yeah.
Mosby Spies. So that'll be
Hmm.
fun. There's all the thing about it. There's all kinds of stuff to study and talk about. A lot of these
Hmm.
things you go down these rabbit holes, like the Amish one we did.
Yeah.
That all came out of the reenactment we did at Strasbourg,
Yeah.
seeing a city kid seeing the Amish, me going, whoa, the whole
Yeah.
time. Then started to thinking maybe there's some history of Civil War with these guys, and it turns out there is. So that was pretty cool.
I came across a book the other day that I want to see if I can get. Probably have to get it through interlibrary loan, but it's about this Michigan regiment that was made up of Anishinaabe, who are the indigenous peoples in that area. And I want to read that because I would love to do an episode about indigenous peoples in the Civil War. And this was like an Anishinaabe, they were sharpshooters or something from Michigan.
Yeah.
And there was a book I came across about it. I should just see if I can Google it. See if it'll come up. But I would like to do an episode about that. Yeah, so the Anishinaabe sharpshooters served in Company K, the first Michigan sharpshooters during the
Okay.
Civil War.
Okay.
And there's a book called Deadly Aim, which is about them.
It's amazing how many different books there are about different subjects. That's
Yeah.
why when there's another Lincoln book that comes out, or another Meade book, or another Grant book, it's like, it's nothing wrong with it, but it's like there's so many cool people,
Mhm.
Guys like Albert Pike, for example,
Yeah.
who maybe people you don't think he's very cool, but he's a fascinating history.
I think he's cool.
Going back to Scottish Rite Freemasonry and everything he did. And there's a lot of people like that you can get into. There's only so many characters. It's amazing in a 4-year war how many characters came out of this whole thing.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
Hal says, as a Navy veteran, I'd love an episode on the Navy, but also on the skullduggery going on in the shipyards in the UK.
We did that on Hal. We did
With Alexander Rose.
Isn't Hal? Is he the one from Littleton, Mass? Is that you, Hal?
Littleton. I think he said
Yeah.
Littleton. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember him from we talked before. That's good. Good to see him back. We did an episode on the shipyards in Birmingham with the blockade runners with the guy who wrote the Turn.
Alexander Rose.
Alexander Rose. We had him on, and he wrote that book, The Lion and the Fox. I remember now.
Yep.
See, sometimes I remember, Mary.
Yeah, Hal says he's from Littleton.
Excellent, perfect. And we did that. That was a fun one. Yeah, because he does the whole stuff with that TV show Turn.
Yeah.
And so he knows his stuff, but he wrote that really good book, The Lion and the Fox. If you haven't read that, read that one. And it talks a lot about all the stuff going on. And it talks about the post-war stuff, what the U.S. wanted from England for reparations for this, which turned out to be Canada.
That was interesting. And the Canada episode, like we'd already done an episode on the Trent affair. Well, then in the Canada episode, we discovered, well, at least I did, I think you already knew about it, but the Chesapeake affair.
Yep.
Which made Lincoln even angrier. And it's why he said to Canadians, okay, now you have to use passports when you cross the border because we don't like you anymore.
Well, the Chesapeake affair, that boat was boarded right off Cape Cod.
Yeah.
Our neck of the woods. So if you know the area, if you're from there, the Chesapeake. If you just one of those stories they teach you.
Yeah.
There used to be a ship, by the way, and everybody from Cape Cod knows this. In the harbor, here's the Cape, and there's the harbor here.
Yeah.
There was a ship that was there that it was the Navy or the Air Force would bomb it. It was like a test ship. You know what it was called? The USS Longstreet.
Wow.
And then eventually it just finally slowed and sank. Yep.
Blanchard said to read the book and listen to the podcast. So I think he means read The Lion and the Fox and listen to our podcast. He said it's one of our finest ones.
Wow.
Thank you.
Well, I mean, he was great on that one. I mean, Rose was he's a great storyteller. He nice guy. And I always, it's funny, I thought he was British. because he does all these things, but he's from like
He's
New
got a
York.
bit of an accent, I think, because he went over to Oxford and lived in England for a while, so he's got a little bit of an
But he
accent.
picked up a British accent. He's from like New York or somewhere.
Hmm.
And so I thought he was like, I thought he was like hardcore English. Like
No, he's
Daz was.
American. He's
Listen,
American.
can't listen to a word Daz says half the time. Can't make the guy
Daz
laugh.
sounds like my grandfather did. Like that. He's
Can't
from
make
the
him
same
laugh
area.
either.
Yeah.
He's British, have no sense of humor. No, he's a good guy. We had a
Yes.
good. We
Yeah.
went down an emerging civil war with them a couple weeks ago. We had a good time with Daz. That he was
Yeah.
that fella can drink his beer.
That was a
Watch,
fun time hanging out
Watching
with
him
them.
holding core with Mikowski and Tyler and all those guys, and there's Daz. Oh, let me
Yeah.
tell you, he just go on and put his arm around him. But he's a
Yeah.
great guy. So I'm glad we get to record that with him last week. That was fun. And we're recording with the Battle of Antietam podcast tomorrow night with John Banks and the great Tom McMillan there. We'll talk a little Antietam, see what you
Yeah.
know about that.
Not
Actually,
much.
I don't know what we're talking about. I have no idea what we're talking about. I assume it's going to be Antietam.
Oh, guy better. I thought you said it was just about podcasting, and you're like, don't worry, you don't have to read up on Antietam.
Yeah, it's about the Sherrick Woods in Antietam, and
Oh, good.
you're just going to control it. So no,
There we
it's
go.
no, I think it's about like podcasting in general.
Yep. Ambrose said Kansas enlisted a large number of Native Americans. John Sixkiller was a Cherokee who died at Island Mound. He was part of the first Kansas Colored Volunteer Infantry Regiment. And then Hal said, as the Anishinaabe, there's another book called These Men Have Seen Hard Service, the first Michigan Sharpshooters in the Civil War by Herrick from 2008. So I'll have to look into that one. Yeah, I definitely want to do one about the Native Americans, indigenous peoples in the Civil War.
Yeah, then we could do because we could talk about Pike. We could talk about the Indian
Yeah.
Brigade, all that stuff too.
Yeah.
And there's Stan Waddy and there's all that stuff. There's a lot of fascinating characters about trying to keep the native tribes out of it. These guys want to be bringing into it.
I think I remember when I was doing research for the Canada episode, I found there was some indigenous peoples from Walpole Island, which is in like Ontario or Erie, can't remember where.
Yeah.
That fought as well in the Civil War, and I think they're buried on Walpole Island. Eli Parker, James mentions.
Yep, there's that story that allegedly I think it was Lee said, he's one American here. They said that never happened, but who knows? It's a good story, so we'll go with it. Doesn't make sense, but no, there's a lot of good stuff like that. Yeah, we didn't really talk too much McPherson at all today.
Oh, we just kind of go all over the place. It doesn't matter.
This is kind of like Japanese animation, right? We're hitting all these.
I mean, that's how it always is.
When we started doing these live things, it was remember it was supposed to talk about the previous episode, remember? And that's how we did it. And that lasted like 2 days, and then it just turns into what it is. But it's good though. We did talk about it a little bit.
Oh, yeah, we also have recorded episodes about Chickamauga since then too, and we were talking about upcoming episode ideas. We talked about Antietam.
No, yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff, and I'm looking forward to the Radcliffe one with Antonio Ford too.
And then the one after that's probably going to be the episode we're recording with Jay Price about how our Halloween will be our sixth Halloween spectacular
with Bloody Mary and Jen Vincent Price.
Yeah,
that'll be fun. Those stories are pretty good too. There's always some good stories that Jen has.
Yeah, well, she throws the history into it as well.
Well, that's
but that's the whole point of what we're doing. We try to do the history, but then put the ghost stuff into it as well. It's just a fun thing to do.
I enjoy it. I enjoy the hell out of that. It's definitely a lot of fun. No question.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll go to that, but there's some fun stuff. It was cool because people always send us episode ideas too. And some we've already done, some we do. There's different ones. If I'd love to do a Says Nola episode. Speaking about Aldi, it's just hard to get enough source information for some of them. There was one episode a couple of years ago that we decided we were going to do, and we just could not find enough stuff on. Remember, for a whole episode, I think
it was like some mountain battle or something.
It was some small little thing. We're like, we can't do this, but there's just not a hell of a lot there.
Yeah.
But a lot of these days, you go through some of these rabbit holes. You get ourselves a little bit of time. Doing this every 2 weeks instead of every week is a lot easier.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, hey, Glow Jam. A little late, but always able to catch up later.
Well, that's good. You're welcome. Good to have people And he actually, speaking of him, he emailed us recently. I think I
Did
responded
he?
to him. Yeah. So people do email us stuff sometimes.
Yeah.
Sometimes we get some stuff. We try to always return them. Sometimes if I do it, if you do it, comes God knows how long it's going to take you to return.
I try if I see them, but
Oh yeah, you try, right? You know.
um, but yeah. Oh, here's another book about Chickamauga that was sitting on the table. Guide to the Battle of Chickamauga, the U.S. Army War College Guide to the Civil War Battles. So that one's too. That's another one about Chickamauga.
No, there's Chickamauga's. I mean, obviously, Powell the trilogy is the best thing about that. No
Mhm.
question about that. Chickamauga is a great battle. I mean, I think people are surprised to find out that it's the second bloodiest battle of the Civil War. People don't think about it.
Yes.
You think of Antietam, or you think of Shiloh. Everybody knows Gettysburg, but is like number one as far as total. But Chickamauga was what's different about Chickamauga is it was close. I mean, it wasn't like a big lopsided. It was a tactical
No.
victory because Rosecrans was driven off the field by Bragg.
Yeah.
It was like a 10 round no knockout who won by decision. Gettysburg was a little bit more of a hammer and the nail type thing.
Yeah.
Um, so when you're looking at just like equal misery, it's pretty close. You know,
Yeah. David Maxwell says he likes the evening, uh, this time that we do the live stream, which yeah, when we can't get on a weekend, this is what we like to do. So we do like to mix it up. And we know some people can make these ones and some people can make the weekend ones and all that.
the
So
weeknights are nice because it's a little bit easier. Um, but at the same time, it's tough. We've been busy traveling all over the friggin' place, and so it's tough to do this regularly like we want to. We try to do it. The week ones are a little bit nice because you can drink and it's a little bit easier. But ironic, I'm drinking lemonade because I got a
I'm
cold.
drinking lemonade tonight too. I'm not drinking
Instead
weekend.
of drinking IPAs at 10 o'clock in the morning.
No, I'm drinking lemonade tonight. Kevin mentions during this time in 1862, Lew Wallace was defending Cincinnati against Henry Heath, his troops, including the Black Brigade of Cincinnati.
Yep, Lew Wallace. Who were we talking with somebody recently about Lew Wallace? Maybe it was just me. I was talking to somebody about Lew Wallace not too long ago.
Wasn't it at Antietam that you were telling somebody about
Yes,
Wallace?
yes,
And
that's
you
who it
told them
was.
about the Battle of Monocacy?
That's who it was. It was somebody about Lew Wallace, specifically asked a question about Lew Wallace. For some reason, sometimes I forget who the hell it was. But he was surprised to find out that even though he was the scapegoat of Shiloh, which I think there's a book called that about him, actually,
There is, yeah.
that his story is a lot more complicated than that. And the Monocacy, you know what's so funny is, I mean, how far is Antietam from Monocacy? Like an hour, 40 minutes?
Maybe it's only like 35 minutes from Gettysburg on a good
But it's like
day.
you'd be surprised how many people have either never heard of Monocacy or have no idea its impact. Like people from
No,
around here
yeah.
or people from down in Maryland.
Oh, I
It's
know.
just fascinating.
I will say people in Maryland, like, because that's where I work now, like, they know the history of the area. Like, I had a conversation at lunch the other day about John Wilkes Booth and the escape, uh, with one of my colleagues. She was asking me all these questions about it, and I was like, oh, okay.
Well, Maryland's got a great history, not just the Pratt Street
Yeah.
riots in Baltimore, but you've also got Emmitsburg, you've got Hagerstown, you've got obviously Sharpsburg, you've got all those places. Maryland there was always something going on in Maryland.
Mhm.
It's like the Valley, if you think about it.
Yeah.
There's always something going on in the Valley.
Yeah. Which, yeah, I ordered a Christmas present for you today.
Did you?
I did.
Wow.
My colleague alerted me to a book that's coming out.
Is it going to be one of these books you were talking about earlier? One of these Teen Beat magazine books that you say you read sometimes? This
No.
Harlequin romance novels?
Harlequin romance novels. There was one series of Harlequin romance novels called A Night with Consequences.
A Night with Consequences.
And the woman always got pregnant by some sheik or king or something.
Always got pregnant?
Yes, it's why it's called A Night with Consequences.
What is she married to Anthony Cromartie, the old jet?
No, it was like,
Wow.
it's like, oh, James said Funko Maryland.
Funko Mary. Funko Mary.
Actually, I've got,
There it is. You wore the right shirt today. Good
yeah,
old Funko Mary.
yeah, we matched today.
Yeah. No, but
Yep.
you can make all these battles and all these things we talk about. This cool how it all comes together.
Mhm.
And as you study this stuff, you realize that the West is actually kind of cooler, right?
Yeah.
But because when you think about the East, right, it's starts at Bull Run, goes down to the peninsula, works its way up to the 7 days into Maryland, driven back Fredericksburg, leads into Chancellorsville, turns into Gettysburg, gets driven by, and that's for the most part that's the East. It's just a
Yeah.
snake that goes around and around and around. Versus the West, you got places like Paducah, and you've got Vicksburg, and you got all these cool places. Then you got the parts of the middle like Pea Ridge, Wilson's Creek,
Yeah.
um, all that. So it's more of a fascinating place, you
Well,
know.
some of the most like Wilson's Creek was fought 1861. Like that's the one that's fought on my birthday, August 10th.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's fought 1861. It's early in the war. Nobody talks about it all, but I've always found the Western theater. I mean, obviously I started off in the Eastern theater, but once I discovered the Western theater, I was like, "Ooh, this is not to
Well, there's more intrigue
something."
to it.
Yeah.
It's more the meat and potatoes part of the battle. Like we said before, and use a football analogy. The Eastern theater is the quarterbacks and the receivers and the touchdowns and the running backs. The Western theater is where the linemen are. They
Yeah.
get their masks all dirty and their nameless and faceless guys get junk pushed in the dirt. That's the Western theater.
Hmm.
Um, but really, the old where the West was won, that old phrase, that's true with the Civil War.
Oh yeah.
Because if it wasn't for everything that went on with Grant coming down the Mississippi and doing that whole thing, and history is just totally different.
Yeah.
Splitting the Confederacy in two, you hear that phrase, but you realize how important it actually was, you know?
Yeah.
And there's just so many more interesting characters too. Because in the Confederacy, it was a never ending race of who was going to replace Albert Sidney Johnson in a lot of ways.
Hmm.
And they never really found anybody. They never did.
No.
It turned into American Idol, and they kept trying different guys out
Could
over and
you
over and over. They
imagine
all got voted off the island.
American
Um,
Idol?
and it was like this, Longstreet thought he was going to be the man. He's like, well, I've been under Lee now, and I've been doing well. I'm gonna. He had that East Coast bias that came in there, and he got humbled too.
Yeah. Yep. Oh, Matt is on here from Explore the Civil War, and he said,
Oh,
speaking of Chickamauga, today is the anniversary of Crittenden's Corps moving into Chattanooga and Bragg's retreat into North Georgia.
yeah. And we talked about that the other day with Daz about
Mhm.
how that thing all sets up. And that whole thing, when you start at Stones River, once they finally got their button gear and got moving through Tullahoma, and then Grant, I mean, Bragg has a good moment where he's telling all the scouts and the spies that they're retreating in the mountains of Georgia.
Yeah.
He's really just kind of turning around to fight. It's an intriguing battle, no question. That is the whole campaign.
Yeah.
Joking.
You're gonna survive?
I'm gonna go into the light. I'm gonna up the spout, Mary.
Please
Up the
don't.
spout.
Please don't.
You
But
know.
we should get ready to jump off here soon because it is a school night.
Yeah. And I'm pretty sure Ed Scorn's got to go to sleep. I get for class tomorrow morning. Hey, we were in your neck of the woods recently, Ed Scorn. By the way, we drove right by your town. Um, as we were back and forth. So I didn't realize how far his town was from Gettysburg and how
Mhm.
miserable that ride is at night. Holy moly!
Mhm.
Going from where he is down in Gettysburg and coming through those mountains,
Yeah.
that's a ride. It's just the scenery doesn't change. It's just dark and dank and oof.
Even when I drove during the day on
Oh, you
Saturday,
wouldn't
I
know
was
because
like,
you were sleeping. But
I was talking on Saturday. I drove
oh,
on Saturday.
oh yeah, okay, you did.
Yeah, I did.
All right. So
Um,
what's coming up for us next then?
so next we are doing an episode about Battle for Harper's Ferry, which part of the Antietam campaign.
It's part of the Maryland campaign. That
Campaign.
that that's correct. And that's going to be fascinating too because we're going to get to talk about Bolivar. We're going to talk about Loudon Heights and Maryland Heights and guys like Kershaw, guys like Dixon Miles, um,
Yeah.
and a lot of cool people that haven't really had their we haven't really talked too much about. Great moment for Stonewall. It is. It's
Hmm.
one of his better moments. Um, but also don't forget about Cobb being able to keep the Sixth Corps out at Crampton's Gap so Jackson could take Harper's
Hmm.
Ferry. So there's a lot of cool stories about that. Um, and how history could have been different.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing. It just really, really is.
Um, And then, oh, Explore the Civil War said, as a former offensive lineman, I love this. The Western Theater is the lineman.
It is, yeah. Well, I'm glad you liked it. It is though, because all everybody out in the East Coast, Gettysburg and Teton, they get all the press if they're close to Washington, all the newspapers. But it's those people, those linemen, those offensive linemen who get their mud face buried in the mud while the running backs celebrating the touchdown. They have to stay back and clear their mud out of their eyes. That's the Western Theater.
Mm-hmm.
And without the linemen, you can't score. So
Yep.
without the Western Theater, you can't win. So
Yep.
I think it's a good analogy. I think
It is.
Yeah.
Yep.
Anyway. And that's
But yeah, and then after the Harper's Ferry episode, we're going to be releasing an episode of Antonia Ford and Laura Radcliffe, who are two of John Mosby's spies in Virginia. And then our Halloween episode, and then we gotta go back to think of some episodes to release. But
there's always fun when we sit back at Civil War Breakfast Club World Headquarters with our staff of thousands.
our cat is our staff.
Me and you and Mosby picking episode ideas, but we'll get it done. But we're going to be doing an episode with Tom and Banks tomorrow on the Battle of Antietam podcast, and so they'll release that on their channel. So follow them if you don't follow the Antietam podcast. That's a good one too.
Yeah,
and then the American and UK one we did last week will drop at some point. And then and then we'll have our own one. We'll be doing the Battle of Harper's Ferry, which will be a lot of fun. And that'll lead into our Mosby Spies episode.
Yeah.
And then before you know, we're going to be talking ghosts and goblins
in
the Halloween Spooktacular number 6.
And maybe we'll talk about Indigenous peoples in the Civil War. And one of my ideas we'll get into an episode.
What are you sniffing glue? What do you do? How many episodes we always do? You
I'm just kidding. No, I said, and one of my ideas is the Native Americans in the Civil War.
Yeah. No, we'll figure that out. Yes, we'll do that. We'll put that on the list. Okay.
James says you need to have some honeyed tea for your cough.
I think I need a hot toddy is what I think I need. Clear myself up a little bit. Drinking beers at 8:00 in the morning at a football game in the rain, which I do all the time, but it's first one to deal with this stupid crap. All right. So why don't we jump off? So today is Tuesday?
Yep, it's Tuesday, September the 9th.
Today's Tuesday. So before you know it'll be weekend. So hopefully the week is working out well. The fall weather is here, Mary. It's cool. I mean, it's September. Bills fans still think they got a chance. Everybody's happy. It's fantastic. Yankee fans don't realize yet that the season's going to end here pretty soon. So then that wonderful buffer zone when everybody's happy. So it's really, really good. So we'll have a good time with that. Any final words from you there, Fitzgerald?
Thanks for bringing it like you always do. Thank you to the awesome people who jumped on here with us tonight and asked awesome questions and comments and all that. We really appreciate it.
Definitely.
Couldn't do it without you guys.
We appreciate it. And we will do more of these weeknight ones because they are nice to do them at night.
Yeah.
Admittedly. The morning ones we're still going to do because, like you said a little while ago, not everybody has can do the mornings. Not everybody can do the weekends. So we'll do some different things. Hopefully, people enjoyed this. And again, thanks for listening to the episodes too. That was the whole point of the entire thing. So hopefully you're enjoying those. And give us some feedback. Some things you like, don't like. Just send us an email. Whatever you want to do, it's all good by us. Mary won't take it personally.
All right.
Choke myself that time.
You think you're so funny. Anyway, hope everybody has a wonderful night, and we will talk to you all soon.